Recently, the new Predator Badlands trailer dropped and the internet is on fire. The main character, Deck, has a very surprising look. A lot of people are roasting the design while others are trying to defend it. So today, I'm desperately challenging AI to redesign Deck and bring back the monster we actually wanted.
This video was made before the release of VO3 and Kling 2.1, so things might already look different or way better by the time you're watching this.
Stan Winston and his team set an unreal standard with the original Predator design. The detail, the costume, the makeup, the animatronics, it all made the creature feel real, terrifying, and dangerous. And let's not forget, this was done almost 40 years ago. That's the power of true old-school practical effects. Even today, the original film still holds up. Now, I'm not a die-hard Predator fan, and I won't pretend to know every detail of its lore, but even I can tell that this new design raises some serious questions about where modern filmmaking is heading. More and more, it feels like studios are trying to follow the current agenda or play it safe, instead of telling bold, honest stories.
Oh my God! They killed the industry! You bastards!
The Predator doesn't feel like the Predator anymore. The design feels forced by modern woke agendas, and the CGI overload has killed the grit, the weight, and the realism we loved in the original film. I'm not going to break down these problems in detail, especially since far smarter and more knowledgeable people have already done that. All I want to do is try to change the Predator's design. Instead of just throwing more negativity at the state of modern filmmaking, I'd rather do something creative, even if I'm just a small creator. Because let's be honest, complaining won't fix anything. I'm not a professional VFX artist, just an enthusiast with some knowledge and a lot of curiosity. But if this inspires someone, sparks a new idea, or maybe even teaches something along the way, it's already worth it. Sure, the proper way to redesign something like this would be to build a new 3D model and recreate the entire scene from scratch. But let's be real, that's a long and complex process. So instead, I decided to approach this challenge using AI tools to see if today's generative models are capable of handling something this tricky. Can they be useful in modern VFX design? Or maybe they're still not ready for tasks like this. A lot of people online love to demonize VFX artists, talking about how awful CGI has become. And to be fair, they're not completely wrong. If you pause the video at just the right moment, Deck really does look like a Sesame Street puppet. But the truth is, it's actually a complex shot. There's attention to detail, facial animation, lighting, camera movement, and yet it still feels fake. Some commenters just screenshot the scene, toss it into ChatGPT and say, "Fix it." Or if they're feeling fancy, maybe they'll try Photoshop. Not exactly a huge challenge, right? Just a couple of years ago, no one in the industry took AI-generated video seriously. It was more of a joke than a real tool.
One ugly motherfucker.
But as we can see now, the progress has been lightning fast. Of course, there are still plenty of problems and limitations. Yet for the average internet user, some of these videos can be genuinely surprising or even completely misleading. I won't say I'm a fan of everything happening with generative video today, but honestly, that's not the AI's fault, it's the people behind it. Just low-effort garbage flooding the internet in the hope of instant success. In the professional world, AI video is being used more and more, though it's still a long way from becoming a true industry standard. My original idea was pretty simple. First, generate a static image of the Predator using AI, then animate it using image to video. And finally, replace Deck's head in the trailer using standard compositing tools in After Effects. To generate a static image of the Predator, I tested several AI models. And right now, the one that worked best for this task was ChatGPT with DALL. Other models like Flux, Midjourney, and a few others couldn't really recreate the Predator's look. They always gave me a very different interpretation of the original. That's probably because of how these models are designed. To avoid copyright violations, they tend to stay away from exact recreations. If you've ever used ChatGPT, you've probably noticed a very specific visual style and a recognizable color tone, but with the latest update, it offers a huge leap in control and quality compared to previous versions. The results I got varied a lot. Some looked surprisingly close to the original Predator, while others were way too human. A bunch of them ended up looking more like orcs or random fantasy characters. Some of the results looked too much like illustrations, missing the sharp detail I needed. But in the end, I narrowed it down to a couple of options, picked one, and moved forward with it in Photoshop. First, I replaced the background with a bright green color. I hope everyone knows why the head is on a green screen, but if not, I strongly recommend watching literally anything about keying. Then I painted in the cropped out dreadlocks, made a few tweaks here and there, and did a bit of work on the eyes. Eyes are actually one of the first giveaways that an image is AI generated. The iris and pupil almost never have a proper circular shape. Before that, I ran a few image-to-video tests in Sora by OpenAI. But honestly, the results were pretty bad. So next, I decided to try Kling, especially after the 2.0 update. With the right input, it can produce some pretty impressive results. Each generation costs 100 credits, and depending on your plan, that averages out to about $1.40 per video. So yeah, if you're not careful, this kind of experimenting can burn through credits fast. And that's exactly what I ran into. I kept regenerating over and over, just hoping to get a usable result. It honestly felt like sitting in a casino pulling a slot machine, hoping for that one perfect jackpot. The first generations weren't actually that bad, but the Predator's eyes looked far too human. So I went back into Photoshop to tweak them and bring them closer to our reference. I also removed some of the dreadlocks, the ones that might get in the way later when compositing. The next few generations weren't great, some even got worse. A lot of them started off looking fine and then just fell apart into complete nonsense. Head movements and roars were far from ideal, and trying to control it all with prompts only made things worse. One time it generated fire or smoke coming out of his mouth. Another time it tried to add a body. There was weird morphing transitions. And the eyes? They looked completely ridiculous, like something out of a cartoon. I also noticed that during animation, dreadlocks would often get cut off, probably because of the square aspect ratio of the source image, and fixing that later would be a nightmare. So once again, where did I go? Yep, back to Photoshop. I added some copy space around the head, cleaned up artifacts, and decided to improve the eyes even more. And of course, right in the middle of all that, I ran out of credits. So yeah, I had to buy more. These changes did solve the crop issue, but the results were still pretty disappointing. I kept getting random visual interpretations and unwanted elements. When I got something close to what I wanted, it was still far from good enough. I kept tweaking the prompts, even tried controlling things using negative prompts, but honestly, nothing really helped. For some reason, the model kept adding camera motion, even though I specifically said static shot in the prompt. But I actually noticed that for this specific task, simpler prompts gave me more stable results. Complex prompts often confused the model or were misinterpreted entirely. And yeah, in case you're wondering, the eyes were garbage again. I kept spinning my generative slot machine, hoping for something good. And then I stopped and thought, what the hell am I even doing? This could go on forever. Even if I finally get something decent or dig through previous versions to find something good enough, I'd still need to put in a ton of work. I'd have to motion track, do rotoscoping, build clean plates, create a bunch of masks, fake shadows, animate dreadlocks, color grade it to match the shot, and yeah, swap the freaking eyes. And for what? Just to blend a generated head into original footage. And even after days of work, it still wouldn't look perfect. The main idea was to test AI tools. And in theory, AI is supposed to help me, not turn me into a hostage of broken frames and random generations. My credits were running low, and I really didn't want to buy more. But I still needed to get some kind of result. That's when I had an idea. Kling has a tool called Multi-Elements. It lets you upload an entire video clip and using the add or swap functions, place your own image into the video. Sounds perfect, right? Well, there's one big catch. Multi-Elements only works with version 1.6. Yes, it's a lot cheaper to generate clips in 1.6, but when it comes to complex animation, it's just not usable, especially if you're aiming for anything even close to realistic. This feature in some ways feels like a cheat code. Of course, it doesn't actually use your video or image directly, it just tries its best to regenerate the scene based on your input. The final result looked more like a video game cutscene. But honestly, for something that's basically one click, it was still really impressive. What actually surprised me was how well the head was attached. The dreadlocks interacted with the body, and the neck moved subtly with the predator's breathing. Sure, there was no roar animation. And yep, those stupid eyeballs never left, just staring at me, mockingly. But how do we get the roar animation? First, I dropped my generation into Adobe Premiere, found the moment where the roar should start, took a screenshot, and sent it back into Kling. Then, using version 2.0, I asked it to animate the predator. The result was still far from what I was really aiming for. Not just because of the overall quality, but also the movement and the lack of detail in the animation itself. But at that point, I had to wrap it up. I'd burned through almost all my credits. And generating even more versions was just out of my budget. Before we finish up with our predator, I want to say a few words about whether AI can actually play a role in today's VFX workflow. For professional level production, right now it's a clear no. The quality just isn't there yet. The detail is low, and getting a precise, predictable result is still really difficult. And the highest bitrate I was able to get was around 15 megabits per second. For social media and small ads, especially for abstract or creative ideas, this tech could absolutely work, as long as you're okay sacrificing control and precision for fast, flashy visuals that only need to hold up for a few seconds. Now all that's left is to stitch the two clips together to finish the sequence. And since Kling version 2 outputs a resolution slightly below full HD, we'll need to upscale the final video a bit. Also, since this is technically a new generation, it didn't match the original screenshot, so I had to clean it up and tweak the scene a bit more. And that's basically it. But hey, let's try to push the final result just a little further, even if it's probably not worth it at this point.
It can't be killed.
If it bleeds, we can kill it.